We looked at the different groups of plants considering their phylogenetic history. So, all land plants possess the cuticle which the green algae lack. There are plants such as Equisetum and Psilotum which possess vascular tissue but which do not possess leaves. Lycopods and ferns possess leaves but do not possess seeds. Gymnosperms possess seeds but not flowers, and angiosperms possess flowers. So if I give you all of these traits as multiple choice answers, angiosperms would possess all of them: the cuticle, the vascular tissue, the seeds, the leaves, and the flowers. Gymnosperms would possess all but the flowers. Ferns would possess all but seeds and flowers. And so ferns possess a cuticle, they possess vascular tissue, and they possess true leaves, etc. So you should be able to identify which traits each group has. Now, this is reflected in their history, where the first land plants first appear in the beginning of the Paleozoic, around the Cambrian. We get plants with vascular tissue in the Silurian period, which is the early to mid Paleozoic era. Leaves appear by the early Devonian period. We don't get the seed plants, the gymnosperms, until the very end of the Paleozoic and the Permian, while the first angiosperms are not known until the Mesozoic era in the Jurassic period. Now, not only does that reflect increasing complexity and their appearance in the fossil record, we could also then write a cladogram which identifies these with each node. Now, we had done this in class, and so given these groups, you should be able to draw a cladogram where, say, the green algae are an outlier, and then at the node following the green algae, a cuticle appears, so that all of the plants above this would have a cuticle. And then the next node would be the evolution of vascular tissue, but mosses would branch off prior to that. And then there would be the evolution of leaves, but Psilotum and Equisetum would branch off prior to that, etc. So like the cladogram which we had done in class, you will be given a blank space and asked to include the groups which are given to you in this cladogram with the significant features which evolved at each node. You should be able to match all of the traits which we had given to their definitions. So xylem are the cells which are made of the tracheids and vessel cells which transport water, while phloem, with its sieve tube members, transports sugar. A microphyll is a leaf with a single vascular branch in it, which is unbranched, whereas the megaphyll, like that we find in angiosperms and ferns and gymnosperms, the vascular tissue branches. Some plants produce only one type of spore, so those are called homosporous, while when we look at the seed plants, some of the sporangia produce microspores, which become the male pollen grains in the sperm inside, while others produce the female megaspores. Most plant groups possess flagellated sperm and so still depend on water. Even some gymnosperms do. The only group of plants which lacks this trait are the flowering plants, the angiosperms. When we studied the life cycles of plants, we pointed out that the gametophyte and sporophyte generations vary, and in different groups of plants, they can be photosynthetic and free-living, they can be the dominant generation, or they could be dependent on the other generation. So if I pick, say, the gametophyte of mosses and liverworts, you would say that this is free-living and photosynthetic and the dominant generation. Whilst if I picked the gametophyte of the seed plants, then they would not be photosynthetic, they would not be free-living, and they would be dependent on the sporophyte generation. And so you should match those. If I ask you about the double fertilization in angiosperms, you should mention that in the pollen tube which is growing, there are two sperm nuclei. One will fuse with the ovum to produce the diploid zygote, which develops into the embryo, but the other sperm nucleus will fertilize the two polar nuclei to make the triploid endosperm. We had mentioned that many seeds undergo growth arrest so that no further development occurs until conditions are correct, and that in gymnosperms, a period of about a year separates pollination and fertilization, and then perhaps another year separates fertilization and seed release.